This will be the People News. Not attorney. Not giving legal advice. Anything I say or do is hearsay. Okay? Educational purposes only. Alright? Take everything with a grain of salt because I'm not all-knowing. Okay? I'm not God. Alright. Never look straight forward. Always look around you. Be able to protect yourself by any means necessary. Alright? And use that Second Amendment. Arm yourself with knowledge so that way you can go back and protect yourself. Okay? So, this is part 2. And there was a lot of talking in the other videos. And I wanted to kind of get a little bit more information in this said video. Alright? Because this affects everybody in some shape, form, or fashion. Whether you're a renter, whether you're a buyer, whether you're an owner and all this. And fraud is still fraud. Okay? And apparently the courts are not smart enough to figure out how to read law. Alright? Or interpret law. They don't know how to read in law, of law, at law, and decipher all that. Okay? And they went to school. I didn't go to school, and I got more knowledge in my little pinky than they do, allegedly. Let's check out some more information. Oh, P.S. So I hit 1,000 subscribers. Thank you for everybody out there. I'm giving notice that it didn't really, to me, matter how many subscribers. The YouTube channel was supposed to be for cop watching during the beginning. Life changes. Okay? And I didn't get to do what I wanted to do. And I end up doing this. And for me to do this, we're just putting it out on video for me to go back and recall some incidents of videos that I thought was important in some form of in-law, at law, of law. Okay? Let's go ahead and proceed forward. Thank you for everybody out there, by the way.
Or bankruptcy is the real estate taxes. In January of 2025, Texas Comptroller Glenn Hagar announced a $23.76 billion surplus due in large because of sales tax, which means all we really need to do is just adjust things some, and then as Americans, we can get our property back. The only solution is to restore the balance sheet to the property owners, which would allow them to own the land under their real estate assets and stop the cumulative compounding of the fraud by the repeal of real estate taxes in favor of the uniform state sales tax. And now here's the key, guys. Texas must be the leader across the nation in economic stability, or it will fall prey to its own negligence. And we see that happening already. Those who voted against the repeal of real estate tax in favor of a uniform state sales tax are voting against their own family, friends, neighbors, constituents by placing 30% plus of the households into a high probability of bankruptcy. The only line item that truly matters is the median household income, from which to determine a closed derivative of valuation. The only verifiable proof of valuation is a sale between a willing buyer and willing seller on a closed cash basis. This evidence proves the weaponization of the real estate tax system against the property owners. Title 42 U.S. Code Section 1986, knowledge of wrongful act and power to prevent. Repeal the real estate tax in favor of the uniform state sales tax. One more bullet point again. We have a $24 billion surplus in sales tax. You guys, we already know this can work. Now, the next sheet right here, guys, is the bankruptcy probability worksheet. And if you guys want to come back, please do it. I'm going to skip the math. But if you want to review the math, just know it's here. So you can review it. But bottom line here, the bankruptcy probability worksheet is determining that 37.81% of owners have a high probability of bankruptcy. The home affordability / bankruptcy probability worksheet is the result of using market value, which is a taxation of unrealized gains. You can't do that, guys. And which is a violation of the 16th Amendment to the
Okay, in short, right there, right here, right? When they say gains, that's also income, okay? Profit. All right, again, even though they're talking about the business real estate, right? Your private property, what gain is it making? What profit is it making? What income is it making? These are the questions that you got to ask. You know, when you go into that court, you can't kind of go in there under property tax, private property, okay? You cannot go in there and say, hey, I'm a taxpayer. Well, you just committed perjury because you're not. You're not qualified to be a taxpayer of your private property because you're not creating income of any form, right? So if you're not creating income, how can you be taxed?
U.S. Constitution. Market value is the mechanism in Texas for which the assessed value is created. Under current Texas law, you can protest your market value, but not your assessed value. As the market value is fraudulent, then so is also the assessed value. Now, 72% of homeowners cannot afford the average market value of what DCAD claims is a $514,000 home, which again is proof of fraud. 37% of households, again, are on track of losing their homes. The same mathematical formulas apply across the state of Texas. And a predominant reason that is as well is because multiple counties use the same fraudulent software that allows these counties to back in a budget into a value. Now, what you guys...
And they're using that same thing to falsify the record. Again, like my other video, right? They go in, the assessor actually goes to the courthouse, uses the copy of your deed when you're actually the owner. You don't have no bank notes or nothing. If you're playing out just owner and it's paid for free and clear, they still do it. And they still put it under real estate. Well, it cannot be real estate. Why? Because it is no longer a business. It's an ownership. And I don't know how complicated this is, judges and attorneys. When you try to get your attorney, well, you're talking out your butt. Don't get me started.
Looking at here is additional math that's showing you that the fraud and overvaluation is happening in multiple counties. So one property is in Louisville ISD, on the right is Aubrey ISD, and this analysis shows two different single-family residences in two different municipalities, and then looks at the change in appraisal, notice market value, final market value, and assessed value for the years of 2016 through 2023, and then looks at inflation as stated by the U.S. Treasury during those years. Regardless of which value percentage compared, being either the notice value, final market value, or assessed value, DCAT through its corrupt database and co-conspirators increased the values 156% to 327% faster than the inflation, which again is another sign of fraud. And I put this in bold one more time. The same mathematical formulas apply across the state of Texas, and many counties use the same fraudulent value softwares to back budgets into values. Under USPAP and the Texas Property Tax Code, clear and convincing evidence exists for a single-family home. The law does not say, let's just make the values up to satisfy a predetermined budget created by a taxing entity. Now, this is a snippet of the...
And again, to remind people out there, nationwide, there is no law requiring you to actually register your property. So if there's no law to register property, how can they tax it? They can't, people. So now there is a law to register for a business creature of the state. There must be a citizen annexus attached to it to operate in the business. But if your own house is private property and does not consist of all them elements, then therefore it cannot be taxed.
Corruption of the database and those people deploying made up market value against the real estate taxpayers. It also proves that DCAD, JCAD, and HCAD, etc., are incapable by intent of obtaining the initial notice of market value, which is a violation of USPAP, Texas Property Tax Code, and the Texas Constitution. School districts are roughly 83% responsible for outstanding bond debt at the local taxing entity. And that's why you guys are starting to see mass teacher layoffs and property owners going bankrupt. The Texas Constitution requires taxable property be taxed in an equal and uniform manner. DCAD, HCAD, and JCAD.
Now, why did they actually really point that out? Taxable property must be equal. Taxable property must be equal. That means there is property out there that's not taxable. That's the reason why there's a clarification there. So taxable property is business. Non-taxable property is your private property that's not in any form of business.
Etc. did not fulfill the mandatory obligation.
On a side note, that's if you decide to get a business license. Now, I'm not an attorney, not giving legal advice, okay? Educational purposes only. But you don't have to have a business license to enter a contract with another man or woman, okay?
And this is what you guys may want to quote when you go into protest the value. The section is just 23.01b. To base its appraisal upon individual characteristics that affect market value and consider all available evidence specific to value of property in determining market value. Section 23.
All available evidence. So, if the statute says the assessor must come into the said real estate, that's the proper way of doing it. But if they cannot do it, then how do they have all ability to assess taxes and what your property is worth? Can't. That's the reason why realtors come in your house and let you look inside your house to get an idea of what your house is valued at to turn around and sell or buy. But the assessor itself cannot do that on private property without a warrant.
01B also requires same or similar appraisal methods and techniques for some or similar properties, with records full of disparate valuations that could not have used similar methods and techniques. It's straight fraud, you guys. I mean, the variance is insane. DCAD has produced erroneous violations due to software issues, limitations, and manipulations. Valuations that are greater than market value cannot be equal and uniform. The Texas Constitution requires taxable property be taxed in an equal and uniform manner. Again, roughly 9% or $7,000 of median income goes to real estate taxes on homes. The average household is short roughly $9,000 per year, of which $7,000 of that is real estate taxes. So the difference of surviving or bankruptcy is the real estate taxes. Now, this is a great chart that Mitch has gone over. Again, if you guys want to go on the math, take your time and go over this. But when all is said and done, when we count unfunded liabilities and national debt, the average taxpayer from a federal standpoint, okay, is in debt, federal debt, by 1.13 million. But when we add the county, which again in Denton is about $243,000 per taxpayer, the combined total is $1.37 million in debt per taxpayer. But when we go to the bottom here, and this is what I really want you guys to understand, everyone that's watching this, okay, that doesn't think real estate taxes is a big deal, the minimum, guys, because remember, we pay property taxes on everything, but the minimum real estate tax as a percentage of median income is 8.68%. That is a massive chunk taken out of our paychecks in addition to what's already being taken out. We should be enraged at this information.
Now, pinpointing, right? What is that? Minimum income. Now, I understand you think that it's your paycheck when you come in. But again, income is profit. So when you work at Walmart, and you don't own Walmart, it's exchange, right? I am giving you some time, and you must give me some cost effective for my time, whether it's in banknotes, whether it's in gold or silver, or whether it's this or whether it's that. There's got to be some form of exchange.
Now, this first chart is the decreasing purchasing power of the dollar. So not only is there fraud being committed against us, remember, all of the money printing, here's the M1 right here, this is rising inflation. All of this is making it much harder for us to live. It's like a double whammy.
And if you kind of notice, it did start going up here, 2010. But when the big C came around, 2020, 2019, it started increasing, but it really shot up after the big C. Geez, I wonder why. Thank God you guys trust your government.
We'll look at this last chart here. Home prices being ungrounded from affordability. I mean, look at the gap. The gap from that red line to that black line, we have never had a time in history to where it was more difficult to be and sustain being a homeowner. Texas median household income by age, and basically...
All right. This is Diesel We the People News. Excuse me. Got a little itch in my throat. The trickery of words that they use against us, right? Income. And you are led to believe when you go to work, you're creating income. That's misleading. The business is creating income. They're trying to get the profit. That's the reason why when they file out taxes, it's the profit. Okay? There's a reason why they have tax deduction, right? It's because they didn't make a profit. They say, hey, look, diesel trucks, right? I made $100,000 this year. However, I spent $50,000 in fuel. The income was only $50,000, so that's all they would be taxed, not the whole $100,000. People, okay? Because it's profit. Diesel We the People News.